Good morning, scholars. Welcome back to Artemis Fowl. Little bit of a late start. I mentioned in the last video I was being lazy and then I had to make breakfast and then I was being lazy again. Also, I'm expecting a lightsaber that I sent to be worked on to come back today, so at some point during the video, if the mail gets here early, I will leave, but I will edit out the wait. Just a heads up. Anyway, we are on Chapter 6, still Part 2, halfway through page 136. Give or take 4 lines. Butler could have taken them from the parapet, one at a time with the ivory hunter's rifle. But that wasn't the plan. This was all about making an impression, sending a message. It was standard procedure with any police force in the world to send in the cannon fodder first before opening negotiations. It was almost expected that they would meet with resistance, and Butler was happy to oblige. Oblige? How do you pronounce it? He peeked out through the letterbox, and, oh, happy coincidence, there was a pair of goggled eyes peeking right back at him. It was just too fortuitous to pass up. Bedtime, said Butler, heaving the door with a mighty shoulder. The fairy flew several feet before alighting in the shrubbery. Juliet would be devastated. She loved rhododendrons. And yet I stumbled there without even saying anything. One down, several to go. What's wrong with you? Butler pulled up the peaked hood on his field jacket. I love those. Stepping into the porch. There they were, spread out like a squadron of action men. If not for the array of very proficient-looking weaponry hanging from each belt, it would have been almost comical. Sliding his finger casually under the trigger guard. Be careful. You shoot your eye out. That's a dated reference even for me. Anyway. Butler strode into their midst. The bulky one at 2 o'clock was giving the orders. You could tell from the heads angled his way. I wouldn't have noticed. The leader gave a command, and the squad switched to close-quarters weapons. It made sense. They'd only cut themselves to pieces with firearms. Time for action. Evening, gentlemen, Butler said. He couldn't help it. It was worth it for that one moment of consternation. Then his gun was up and blazing. Captain Kelp was the first casualty, a titanium-tipped dart puncturing the neck of his suit. He went down sluggishly, as though the air had turned to water. 2 more of the squad were dropped before they had any idea what was going on. It must be quite traumatic, thought Butler, dispassionately, to lose an advantage that you've held for centuries. By now, the remains of Retrieval 1 had their buzz batons fired up and raised, but they made the mistake of hanging back, waiting for a command that was not forthcoming. This gave Butler an opportunity to take the fight to them, as if he needed another advantage. Even so, for a second, the manservant hesitated. These beings were so small, like children. Then Grubb clipped him on the elbow with his buzz baton, and 1,000 volts spread across Butler's chest. All sympathy for the little people vanished instantly. Butler grabbed the offending baton, swinging the weapon and bearer like a set of bolas. Bolas? I think. Anyway. Grubb squealed as he was released, his newfound momentum carrying him directly into 3 of his comrades. Butler continued the swinging motion, driving punishing punches into the chests of 2 more fairies. Another clambered onto his back, stinging him repeatedly with the baton. Butler fell on him. Something cracked, and the stinging stopped. Yeah, that's something I've always tried to remind myself. If someone tries to jump onto your back and choke you out, just grab them by the legs and just dive down onto them. They'll cushion your fall for the most part, and don't bite your tongue if you do that, and try not to hit your head on the ground, but you should be fine. Safety tips when you're fighting for your life. Oh, also, if you're going to throw a punch, hit with right here because it has the support of all of this. So, jabbing someone into the nose like so. Want to go up and into the skull rather than like whatever else. Because the eyes will then be blind. Anyway, let's get back to the story. Suddenly there was a barrel under his chin. One of Retrieval had managed to get his weapon loaded. "Freeze, mud boy," droned a helmet-filtered voice. It was a serious-looking gun. Liquid coolant bubbled along its length. "Just give me a reason." Butler rolled his eyes. Different race, same macho cliches. He slapped the fairy open-handed. To the little man, it must have been like the sky falling on his head. "That reason enough for you?" Butler scrambled to his feet. Furry bodies were scattered around him in various stages of shock and unconsciousness. Scared, definitely. Dead, probably not. Mission accomplished. One little guy was faking, though. You could tell by the way his tiny knees knocked together. Butler picked him up by the neck, finger and thumb easily meeting around the back. Oh, gosh. "Name?" Corporal Kelp." "Oh, Corporal, you tell your commander that the next time I see armed forces coming in here, they'll be picked off by sniper fire. No darts, either. Armor-piercing bullets." "Yes, sir, sniper fire. Got it. Seems fair." "Good. You are, however, permitted to remove your injured." "Most generous of you. But if I see so much as a twinkle of a weapon on any of the medics there, I might be tempted to donate a few of the mines I have planted in the grounds." Or detonate. Donate. What? I'm going back to bed. Anyway. Grubb swallowed, his pallor increasing beyond the visor. "Unarmed medics. Crystal clear." Butler set the fairy down, brushing his tunic with massive fingers. "Now, final thing. Listening?" Furious nods. "I want a negotiator. Someone who can make decisions, not some no-ranker who is to run off back to base after every demand. Understood?" "Fine, that is, I'm sure it'll be fine. Unfortunately, I'm one of those no-rankers, so you see, I can't actually guarantee it will be fine." Butler was sorely tempted to drop-kick this little fellow back to his camp. I can see it. "Very well, I understand. Just shut up." Grubb almost agreed, then clapped his mouth shut and nodded. "Good. Now, before you go, collect all weapons and helmets and make a little pile right here." Grubb took a deep breath. "Oh well, may as well go out a hero." "I can't do that." "Oh really? And why not?" Grubb drew himself up to his full height. "An LEP officer never relinquishes his weapon." Butler nodded. "Fair enough. Thought I'd ask. Off you go, then." Hardly able to believe his luck, Grubb scurried back toward the command tower. He was the last fairy standing. Trouble was snoring in the gravel, but he, Grubb Kelp, had faced down the mud monster. Wait until Mommy heard about this. Holly sat at the edge of her bed, fingers curled around the metal base. She lifted slowly, taking the weight on her arms. The strain threatened to pop her elbows from their sockets. She held it for a second and then slammed the frame into the concrete. A satisfying cloud of dust and splinters swirled around her knees. "Good," she grunted. Holly eyed the camera. Doubtless they were watching her. No time to waste. She flexed her fingers, repeating the maneuver again and again until the steel base left deep welts in her finger joints. With each impact, more and more splinters popped from the fresh floor. After several moments, the cell door burst open and Juliet fell into the room. I can't remember what happens here. I remember what happens after. Anyway. "What are you doing?" she panted. "Trying to knock the house down?" "I'm hungry," shouted Holly. "And I'm fed up of waving at the stupid camera. Don't you feed your prisoners around here? I want some food." I'm having flashbacks to the Ninja Turtles movie way back in the 90s. Anyway. Juliet's fingers curled into a fist. Artemis had warned her to be civil, but there was a limit. No need to get your Wait, what? Oh. Or whatever, in a twist. So what do fairies eat? Got any dolphin? Holly asked sarcastically. It's horrifying. Juliet shuddered. No, I don't, you beast. Fruit, then. Or vegetables. Make sure they're watched. I don't want any of your chemical poisons in my blood. Ha ha, what a riot you are. Don't worry, all our produce is grown naturally. Juliet paused on her way to the door. And don't you go forgetting the rules. No trying to escape from the house, and there's no need to break up the furniture either. Don't make me demonstrate my full Nelson. Team 4-star. Anyway, as soon as Juliet's footsteps had faded, Holly began smashing the bed into the concrete. That was the thing about fairy bonds. The instructions had to be given eye to eye, and they had to be very precise. Just saying there was no need to do a thing wasn't specifically forbidding an elf to do it. And another thing, Holly had no intention of escaping from the house. That wasn't to say she didn't mean to get out of her cell. Artemis had added yet another monitor to the bank. This one was linked to a camera in Angeline Fowl's attic room. He spared a moment to check in on his mother. Sometimes it bothered him having a camera in her room. It seemed almost like spying, but it was for her own good. There was always the danger that she could hurt herself. At the moment she was sleeping peacefully, having swallowed the sleeping pill that Juliet had left on her tray. All a part of the plan. A vital part. Butler entered the control room. He was clutching a fistful of fairy hardware and rubbing his neck. Tricky little blighters. Artemis looked up from the monitor bank. Any problems? Nothing major. These little batons packed quite a punch, though. How's our prisoner? Fine. Juliet is getting her something to eat. I'm afraid Captain Short is going a bit stir-crazy. On the screen, Holly was smashing her cot into the concrete. It's understandable, noted the manservant. Imagine her frustration. It's not as if she can tunnel her way out. Artemis smiled. No, the entire estate is built on a bed of limestone. Not even a dwarf could tunnel his way out of here. Or in. Dun dun dun. Wrong, as it happened. Dead wrong. A landmark moment for Artemis Fowl. The LAP had procedures for emergencies like this one. Admittedly, these did not include the retrieval squad getting hammered by a lone enemy. Still, that just made the next step all the more urgent, especially with the faintest of orange tinges creeping into the sky. Are we good to go? Roared Root into his mic, as though it wasn't whisper sensitive. Sorry. Good to go, thought Foley, busy wiring the last dish on the watchtower. These military types and their catchphrases. Good to go, lock and load. I don't know, but I've been told. Oh, so insecure. Aloud, he said, "No need to shout, Commander. These headsets could pick up a spider scratching in Madagascar." And is there a spider scratching in Madagascar? Well, I don't know. They can't really. Stop changing the subject, Foley, and answer the question. The first one or the second one? See, this is the kind of brain I have. I don't make a lot of sense. Anyway. The centaur scowled. The commander took everything so literally. He plugged the dish's modem lead into his laptop. Okay, we're good to go. About time, too. Right. Flip the switch. For the third time in as many moments, Foley gritted his horsey teeth. He was indeed the stereotypical unappreciated genius. Flick the switch, if you don't mind. Root didn't have the cranial capacity to appreciate what he was trying to do here. Stopping time wasn't just a matter of pressing the on button. There was a series of delicate procedures that had to be performed with utmost precision. Otherwise, the stop zone could end up as just so much ash and radioactive slop. Oh, that'd be horrifying. While it was true that fairies had been stopping time for millennia, these days, with satellite communication and the internet, humans were liable to notice if a zone just dropped out of time for a couple of hours. There was an age when you could throw a blanket stoppage over a whole country and the mud people would simply think the gods were angry. But not anymore. Nowadays, the humans had instruments for measuring everything. So if there was any time stopping to be done, it had better be fine-tuned and precise. In the old days, 5 elven warlocks would form a pentagram around the target and spread a magic shield over it, temporarily stopping time inside the enchanted enclosure. This was fine as far as it went, provided the warlocks didn't have to use the bathroom. Many a siege was lost because of an elf had one glass of wine too many. Oh. Warlocks would tire quickly too, and their arms get sore. On a good day, you had maybe an hour and a half, which was hardly worth the trouble in the first place. It was Foley's idea to mechanize the whole procedure. He had the warlocks do their thing into the lithium batteries and then set up a network of receiver dishes around the designated area. Sounds simple? Well, it wasn't. But there were definite advantages. For one thing, there was no more power surges. Batteries didn't try to show off to each other. You could calculate exactly how many power cells were needed, and sieges could be extended for up to 8 hours. As it happened, the Fowl Estate was the perfect location for a time stop, isolated with a definite boundary. It even had elevated towers for the dishes, for heaven's sake. It was almost as if Artemis Fowl wanted it to be time stopped. Foley's finger hesitated over the button. Could it be possible? After all, the human youth had been one step ahead throughout this whole affair. Commander? Are we online yet? Not exactly. There's something... Root's reaction nearly blew out the woofers in Foley's earpiece. No, Foley, there isn't something. None of your bright ideas, thank you very much. Captain Short's life is in danger, so push the button before I climb that tower and push it with your face. Touchy, muttered Foley and pushed the button. Anyway, Lieutenant Cudgeon checked his manometer. You have 8 hours. I don't remember which one that was. Anyway, I know how much time I have, growled Root, and stop following me. Don't you have work to do? Actually, now that you mention it, I have a biobomb to arm. Root rounded on him. Don't annoy me, Lieutenant. Having you make comments at every turn is not improving my concentration. Just do whatever it is you feel you have to do. But be prepared to back it up at tribunal. If this one goes wrong, heads are going to roll. Indeed, muttered Cudgeon under his breath. But mine is not going to be one of them. Oh my gosh, I just remembered who this is. Anyway. Root checked the sky. A shimmering azure field had descended over the Fowl Estate. Good. They were in limbo. Outside the walls, life continued at an exaggerated pace. But if anyone were to somehow gain access to the manor in spite of the fortified walls and high gate, they would find it deserted, all occupants trapped in the past. Ooh, spooky. That hurts my head trying to think about it now. So for the next 8 hours, it would be twilight on the Fowl Estate. After that, Root could not guarantee Holly's safety. Given the gravity of the situation, it was more than likely that Cudgeon would get the go-ahead to the biobomb, or to biobomb the whole place. Sorry. Root had seen a blue rinse before. No living thing escaped. Not even the rats. That's so sad. Root caught up with Foley at the base of the north tower. The Centaur had parked a shuttle by the 3-foot thick wall. That's a pretty thick wall. Already the work area was a mess of tangled wires and pulsating fiber optics. Foley, are you in here? The Centaur's foil-capped head emerged from the belly of a disemboweled hard drive. Oh my goodness. Over here, Commander. You've come to push a button with my face, I presume. Root almost laughed. Don't tell me you're looking for an apology, Foley. I've already used my quota for the day. And that was to a lifelong friend. Cudgeon? Forgive me, Commander, but I wouldn't waste my apologies on the Lieutenant. He won't be wasting any on you when he stabs you in the back. You're wrong about him. Cudgeon is a good officer. A bit eager, certainly, but he'll do the right thing when the time comes. The right thing for himself, maybe. I don't think Holly is at the top of his priority list. Root didn't answer. He couldn't. And another thing. I have a sneaking suspicion that young Artemis Fowl wanted us to stop time. After all, everything else we've tried has played straight into his hands. Root rubbed his temples, and now so do I. That's impossible. How could a human know about time stoppage? Anyway, this is no time for theorizing. Foley. I have less than 8 hours to clean up this mess. So what have you got for me? Foley clopped over to an equipment rack clamped to the wall. No heavy armament, that's for sure. Not after what happened to Retrieval 1. No helmet either. That beast of a mudman seems to collect them. No, to show good faith, we're going to send you in unarmed and unarmored. Root snorted. What manual did you get this from? It's standard operating procedure. Fostering trust speeds communication. Oh, stop quoting and give me something to shoot. Suit yourself, sighed Foley, selecting what looked like a finger from the rack. What's that? It's a finger. What does it look like? A finger, admitted Root. Yes, but not an ordinary finger. He glanced around to make sure no one else was watching. The tip contains a pressurized dart. One shot only. You tap the knuckle with your thumb and someone goes Betty bye. Why haven't I seen this before? It's a covert kind of thing. And, Root said suspiciously, well, there have been accidents. Tell me, Foley. Our agents keep forgetting they have it on, meaning they shoot themselves. Foley nodded miserably. One of our best sprites was picking his nose at the time. 3 days on the critical list. Oh, goodness, no. Root rolled the memory latex onto his index finger, where it immediately assumed the shape and flesh tone of the host digit. Okay, we're getting close. About 6 more pages. So about 30 minutes. And then I'll get eaten. Don't worry, Foley, I'm not a complete idiot. Anything else? Foley unhooked what appeared to be a false bottom from the equipment rack. You're not serious. What does that do? Nothing, admitted the centaur, but it gets a great laugh at parties. Root chuckled. Twice. That was a major lapse for him. Okay, levity over. Are you going to wire me? Naturally. What iris cam? What color? He peered into the commander's eyes. Mud brown. He selected a small vial from the shelf and removed the electronic contact lens from a fluid capsule. Plucking Root's eyelid with thumb and forefinger, he slotted in the iris cam. That might irritate you. Try not to rub or it could end up in the back of your eye. Then we'd be looking into your head and there's nothing interesting in there, heaven knows. Root blinked, resisting the urge to knead his watering eye. That's it? Foley nodded. It's all we dare risk. The commander agreed reluctantly. His hip felt very light without a tri-barreled blaster dangling from it. Okay, I suppose this amazing dart finger will have to do. Honestly, Foley, if this blows up in my face, you'll be on the next shuttle back to Haven. The centaur snickered. Just be careful in the toilet. Root didn't laugh. There were some things you didn't joke about. Artemis's watch had stopped. It was Greenwich wasn't there anymore. Or perhaps, mused Artemis, we're the ones who have disappeared. He checked CNN. It had frozen. A picture of Riz Khan jittered slightly on the screen. Artemis could not hold back a satisfied smile. They had done it, just like the book said. The LEP had stopped time, all according to plan. Time to check out a theory. Artemis wheeled over to the monitor bank and punched up the man cam on the 28-inch main monitor. Angeline Fallow was no longer on the chase lounge. Artemis panned around the room. It was empty. His mother had gone. Disappeared. His smile widened. Perfect. Just as he'd suspected. Artemis switched his attention to Holly Short. She was banging the bed again. Occasionally she would rise from the mattress, pounding the wall with her bare fists. Maybe it was more than frustration. Could there be a method to her madness? I would say so. My lips look blue. He tapped the monitor with a slim finger. What are you up to, Captain? What's your little plan? He was distracted by movement on the Avenue monitor. At last, he breathed. The games begin. A figure was advancing down the avenue, small but imposing nonetheless, unshielded too. Finished play. Play acting then, there we go. Artemis punched the intercom button. Butler, we have a guest. I'll show him in. You get back here and police the surveillance cameras. Butler's voice came back tinny through the speaker. 10-4, Artemis. On my way. Artemis buttoned his designer jacket, pausing at the mirror to straighten his tie. The trick to negotiation was to hold all the cards going in, and even if you didn't, to try and look as though you did. Artemis put on his best sinister face. Evil, he told himself. Evil, but highly intelligent. And determined. Don't forget determined. He put a hand on the doorknob. Steady now. Deep breaths, and try not to think about the possibility that you have misjudged the situation and are about to be shot dead. 1, 2, 3. He opened the door. Good evening, he said, every inch the gracious host, albeit a sinister, evil, intelligent, and determined one. Root stood on the doorstep, palms up, the universal gesture for look, I'm not carrying a big murderous weapon. You're Fowl? Artemis Fowl, at your service. And you are? LEP Commander Root. Right, we know each other's names, so could we get on with this? Certainly. I shouldn't have said it like that. It should have been more like, certainly. Anyway, Root decided to chance taking out his weapon. Step outside then, where I can see you. Artemis's face hardened. Have you learned nothing from my demonstrations? The ship, your commandos? Do I need to kill someone? No, said Root hurriedly. He only meant to lure me outside, where I could be snatched and used to trade. Please, Commander Root, raise your game or send someone intelligent. Root felt the blood pump through his cheeks. I hope he means his face. Wow, that's a dated reference too. Now it is anyway. Where was it? Now you just listen to me, you young artist. Artemis smiled again in command. Not very good negotiation techniques, Commander. To lose your cool before we even get to the table. Root took several deep breaths. Fine, whatever you say. Where would you prefer to conduct our talks? I'm a pirate. I don't know what that was. Inside, of course, you have my permission to enter, but remember, Captain Short's life is in your hands. Be careful with it. Root followed his host down the vaulted hallway. Generations of fowls glared down at him from classical portraits. They passed through a stained oak doorway to a long conference room. There were 2 places set at a round table, complete with pads, ashtrays, and water jugs. I need some water. Root was delighted to see the ashtrays and immediately pulled a half-chewed cigar from his vest. Maybe you're not such a barbarian after all, he grunted, exhaling a huge cloud of green smoke. The commander ignored the water jugs, instead pouring himself a shot of something purple from a hip flask. He drank deeply, belched, and sat. Ew. Ready? Artemis shuffled his notes like a news anchor. Here is the situation as I see it. I have the means to expose your subterranean race. Or existence, sorry. I don't know what I was looking at. Anyway. And you are powerless to stop me. So basically, whatever I ask for is a small price to pay. Root spat out a shred of fungus tobacco. Ugh. So you think you can just pull all this information over the internet? Or put all this information over the internet? Well, not immediately. Not with the time stop in effect. Root choked on a lungful of smoke. The race in the hole. Gone. Well, if you know about the time... Wrong person. Well, if you know about the time stop, you must also know that you are completely cut off from the outside world. You are, in effect, powerless. My throat hurts. Artemis jotted a note on the pad. Let's save some time here. I grow weary of your clumsy bluffs. Clumsy? Yeah, okay. In the case of an abduction, the LEP will first send a correct retrieval team to get back what has been lost. You have done so. Excuse me while I titter. Crack team? Honestly, a Cub Scout patrol armed with water pistols could have defeated them. Root fumed silently, taking out his anger on the cigar butt. The next official step is negotiation, and finally, when the 8-hour time limit is about to run out, and if no solution can be reached, a biobomb is detonated, contained by the time field. You appear to know an awful lot about us, Master Fowl. I don't suppose you'll tell me how. Correct. Root mashed the remains of his cigar into the crystal ashtray. So let's have it. What are your demands? One demand. Singular. Artemis slid his notepad across the polished table. Root read what was written there. 1 ton of 24-karat gold. Small unmarked ingots only. You can't be serious. Oh, but I am. Root sat forward in his chair. Don't you see? Your position is untenable. Either you give us back Captain Short or we'll be forced to kill you all. There is no middle ground. We don't negotiate. Not really. I'm just here to explain the facts to you. Artemis smiled, his vampire smile. Ugh. Oh, but you will negotiate with me, Commander. Oh, really? And what makes you so special? I am special because I know how to escape the time field. Impossible, snorted Root. Can't be done. Oh yes, it can. Trust me, I haven't been wrong yet. Root tore off the top page, folding it into his pocket. I'll have to think about this. Take your time. We have 8 hours. Excuse me, 7.5 hours. Then time's up for everybody. Root said nothing for a while, tapping his nails on the tabletop. He took a breath to speak, then changed his mind and stood abruptly. We'll be in touch. Don't worry. I'll see myself out. Artemis pushed his chair back. You do that, but remember this. None of your race has permission to enter here while I am alive. Root stalked down the hallway, glaring back at the oil paintings. Better to leave now and process this new information. The Fowl Boy was indeed a slippery opponent, but he was making one basic mistake. The assumption that Root would play by the rules. However, Julius Root hadn't gotten his commander's stripes by following any rule book. Time for a bit of unorthodox action. The videotape from Root's iris scam was being reviewed by experts. You see there, said Professor Cumulus, a behavioral specialist, that twitch. He's lying. Nonsense, huffed Dr. Argon, a psychologist from below the United States. He's itchy, that's all. He's itchy, so he scratches. Nothing sinister in it. Cumulus turned to Foley. Listen to him. How can I be expected to work with a charlatan? Witch doctor, countered Argon. Foley raised his hairy palms. Gentlemen, please, we need agreement here. A concrete profile. It's no use. It's no use. It's no use. Anyway, said Argon, I can't work in these conditions. Cumulus folded his arms. If he can't work, neither can I. Root strode through the shuttle double doors. Did I say that right? I don't feel like I did. His trademark purple complexion was even rosier than usual. That human is toying with us. I will not have it. Now what did our experts make of the tape? I'm completely losing his voice. Anyway, Foley moved slightly to the side, allowing the commander a clear run at the so-called experts. Apparently, they can't work in these conditions. Root's eyes narrowed to slits, bringing his prey into sharp focus. Excuse me? The good doctor is a half-wit, said Cumulus, I don't know. Unfamiliar with the commander's temper. I'm a half-wit? Stuttered Argon, equally ignorant. What about you, you cave fairy, plastering your absurd interpretations onto the most innocent of gestures? There we go. Innocent? The boy is a bag of nerves, obviously lying. It's textbook. Root slammed a clenched fist on the table, sending a spider web of cracks scurrying across the surface. Holy cow! Silence! I don't know where that came from anyway. And silence there was, instantly. Now you two are experts are on the handsome retainers for your profiling work, correct? The pair nodded, afraid to speak in case that broke the silence rule. This is probably the case of your lives, so I want you to concentrate very hard. Understood? More nods. Root popped the camera out of his weeping eye. Fast forward it fully toward the end. The tape hopped forward erratically. On screen, Root followed the human into his conference room. There. Stop it there. Can you zoom in on his face? Can I zoom in on his face? Nodded Foley. Can a dwarf steal the web from under a spider? Yes, replied Root. That was a rhetorical question, actually. I don't need a grammar lesson, Foley. Just zoom in, would you? Foley ground his tombstone teeth. Anyway, where was I? Okay, boss. Will do. The centaur's fingers prodded the keyboard with lightning speed. Artemis's visage grew to fill the plasma screen. I'd advise you to listen, said Root, squeezing the expert's shoulders. This is a pivotal moment in your careers. I am special, said the mouth on the screen, because I can escape the time field. Now tell me, said Root, is he lying? Run it again, said Cumulus. Show me his eyes. Argon nodded. Yes, just the eyes. Foley tapped a few more keys, and Artemis's deep blue eyes expanded to the width of the screen. I am special, boomed the human voice, because I can escape the time field. Well, is he lying? Cumulus and Argon looked at each other, all traces of antagonism gone. No, they said simultaneously. He's telling the truth, added the behaviorist. Or, clarified the psychologist, at least he thinks he is. Root swabbed his eye with a cleansing solution. That's what I thought. When I looked that human in the face, I figured he was either a genius or crazy. Artemis's cool eyes glared at them from the screen. So which is it? Asked Foley. A genius or crazy? Root grabbed his tri-barrel blaster from the gun rack. What's the difference? He snapped, strapping his trusty weapon to his hip. Get me an outside line to E1. This foul person seems to know all of our rules. So it's time to break a few. Okie dokie. That took a lot longer than I thought it was going to. Don't remember what I was going to say. Alright, I'm going to go get Iggy out of the tub. I'll give him some breakfast. And I'll start uploading these momentarily. Until next time. Goodbye, everybody.